Good evening and welcome everyone back to another Hit in the Turnbuckle podcast. This is once again another NWA Crocket Cup special. I am your host, Adam Cousins. And as always, we can't have an NWA podcast without the lovely Fiona Lochrin. Good evening.
Good evening. How are we?
I'm okay. Wedding day for my best friend was yesterday. I was the sober best man. So
wow, that's impressive.
Chauffeur in the lots. So I was in the.
I'll drink that.
There we go. I guess he's having a drink to that already. Brilliant. Like we said, NWA guest this evening. What a guest to bring on. He's actually competing in the Crocket Cup, which we'll get onto a bit later on. Good afternoon to you, Jax Dane. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you guys for having me. Hello to both of you.
Thank you for joining us. Much appreciated.
Yeah, as always, it's very appreciated when we have the guests on, especially the NWA. We've had a few of these now, Fee. We've been going around. Plunky, AJ,
yeah,
Sal,
Danny,
EC3,
who else?
Tony.
EC3. We're getting through, you guys.
Yeah, we're getting through the roster. EC3 was an absolute belter, by the way.
Man, genius.
He really is. Like we sat through the whole podcast like this. It's just listening.
He's an intelligent individual.
He certainly is. Anyway, let's not talk EC3. Let's talk about yourself, Jax. Now, 2023 in wrestling. Over here, Fiona, you will agree. Here in the UK and Scotland, it's just crazy. Like I get pop-ups every day on socials. Oh, we're going to have a show here tonight. He's going to be there. We're going to have a show over here tomorrow. He's going to be there.
Yeah.
What is your view on pro wrestling in 2023 in general?
Oh, well, I think the state of professional wrestling is pretty good right now. I think there's a lot of jobs for a lot of guys and ladies. So if you want to work and you're talented and capable and professional, I think you can find a place to get up and go to work every day. So I think that's a good thing. I think if there's anything right now that hinders professional wrestling, and it's kind of a double-edged sword, it's your social media aspect versus your versus the behind the scenes stuff, right? I think fans, if anything, the diehard fans have gotten away from enjoying the product and trying to just take it for what it is and enjoy it. And everybody's an armchair booker, and this guy should be doing this, and this guy should be doing that, and why doesn't this guy go here? And I get tickled all the time, man. You see maybe a guy gets released or a lady gets released, and the fans automatically, well, he should go here, they should go there, but they never take into account who's already there. Is there a spot open? What type of financial situation does it put them in to go there? Because not all companies are equal. Let's don't pretend that they are. So some guys can't afford to take some jobs because they're top of the food chain, right? And there's a financial aspect to that. So I get tickled, man. I mean, it's fun. I guess we all do it in different sports. I'm a big basketball junkie. I played basketball in college. And, so I armchair watch basketball too, right? But try to get away from that and just enjoy it for what it is. I mean, for me as a fan, I've gotten to see Michael and Kobe and LeBron and those guys and the evolution. And it's been a teaching or a learning experience for me to just be able to step back and enjoy the game and not debate who's better or what's better. You can't compare. And it's similar to pro wrestling, right? Who's the GOAT? Well, a lot goes into that. There's a lot goes into that. For me, the greatest of all time is probably going to be Rock or Cena. That's just who I like, and that's what I like. But that doesn't mean that's the GOAT for everyone. So
exactly. Now, we just had you on our show. We done a show the other day of the top 10 greatest wrestlers. In our opinions, of course, it wasn't, it was an open forum. It was interesting you put Rock or Cena. I take your point on socials because nowadays, if you go back like, 10, 15 years, obviously, Fiona, we only had a limited wrestling audience, what we could watch on the TV back then. But there was science. Everyone was literally fixated on what was going on. Nowadays, you see an opening of a wrestling program and they're just like this with their phones. And they're just video and they're not getting involved as we don't reward them for getting involved anymore as a business.
And what I mean by that is how often does somebody make a debut and the fans not know it's coming? Or
that's true. The Rumble as well, entrance for the Rumble, that sort of thing. There's no surprises.
When I was a fan, when I was a fan, and I'm still a fan, but when I was a fan watching growing up, you didn't have all of that. So when somebody would make a debut or they debut a new character, all you knew about that character was what they show you, right?
Yeah.
Now guys debut for the big companies or NWA or Impact, and you know everything about them. You know what their wife looks like. You know what their kids look like. You know what their real name is. You know that they drive a decent car, or I mean, there's just social media to me takes the stardom out of professional wrestling in a sense. Now, some guys have done a really good job of separating the two, but most guys, man, it's hard to separate the two. I suffer from that just like everyone else.
There's no mystery anymore. The era mystery about the characters in wrestling's kind of just disappeared these days. Because I
agree. If you take a look at it, man, and a couple of guys that I think do a really good job. Take, for instance, Brock Lesnar, right? You still to this day know very, very little about what goes on in Brock's personal life, what his life looks like outside of wrestling or fighting. I think the UFC exposed that a little bit with some of their coverage of him. But, he was just an enigma, this thing that's larger than life, and you never get to pull the curtain back on his life, so he never seems human, where 98% of professional wrestlers today, our entire lives are out there for the world to see. So there is no curtain to pull back. It's open. So building a star around a normal guy is hard to do.
It is. I think the longest one really until recently was Undertaker.
Right. Absolutely. 100%.
Until he started doing his, the shows that he's been doing. And you wouldn't really want to go up to Brock Lesnar and ask those sort of questions, would you? Not, I certainly wouldn't, because I wouldn't know what to say. Fiona, I owe you a bit of an apology, actually. I do.
Yeah.
We have had you on the show. You basically, long story short, we wouldn't be doing any of these shows at the NWA if it wasn't for you. You went out there and you pitched it to the guys there, and they were gracious enough to come on, and we're very humbled and respectful of that. But we always bring you on this show, and you always come on these NWAs, and you play the games that we generally play, but I never get you to ask them the questions. So please fire some away this evening.
Well, do you know, my first one actually is totally non-wrestling related.
Fine.
I have just seen your new tattoo, Jax.
Me too.
Tell me the inspiration behind that, because it's absolutely stunning. I love it.
Well, as you guys can tell by looking at me, I'm pretty covered up at this point, right? My wife and my beautiful, wonderful, supportive wife, who helps me with everything that I do. We did a little count last night, and I'm about 38 hours in to sit there at this point. So it's it's kind of funny. I came up in the business with Ray Rowe, Eric of the Viking Raiders, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And we met. I had 0 tattoos, right? And he was red. And he used to tease me, and he'd say, "Man, when are you gonna start? When are you gonna start?" And nothing's really that important to me, right? Nothing's that important to me. Nothing really has altered my life to make me want to go out and do that, because I think there should be a significance to it. And then all of a sudden, all these life events start happening, right? And stuff that I want to document. So every tattoo that I have, there's a story behind it. Nothing is random. I'll run through them real quick just because you guys asked.
Please.
I've got the, on the back of my calf, I've got the latitude and longitude of my father's farm in Tennessee. I joke on that. That way, if I die, they know where to send the body. So that's on my right pec, on my right chest. I've got a jaguar, which is big into Mayan culture, and my wife is Hispanic, and that's important to her and her family. On my left pec, on my left chest, I've got a hummingbird. My mother passed away in 2015. That was my first one, was to get the tribute to her, and it expanded over into my arm. Roses and an hourglass, and there's a quote by Buddha that says, "The trouble is you always think you have time, and you don't in this world. You don't have time's fleeting. It's the only thing in this world that you can't get back." And as I've gotten older, I've learned that. So I've got that on my arm and my chest. What else do I have? A couple of butterflies. Are some really important people in my life that by butterflies. I've got a niece on my wife's side here. My niece, my sister's little girl, a butterfly for my mother, a butterfly for my stepson, and then on my back is the elephant, right? And so, you know, all these guys, and I have a ton of respect for everyone that deserves respect in this world, but you always see lions and tigers and monsters, right? And I just think to myself, what represents me the best? And I think it's like a big fucking elephant, man. I'm pretty big, and I'm fairly methodical, and I'm really, really passive, and I'm really, really calm until it's time to not be calm. And then the lion doesn't stand a chance against an elephant that's motivated.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then tucked behind the elephant, there's a baby elephant, and that represents my niece on my wife's side of the family. It's my job to protect her, and that's where she's at.
Wow,
I love that.
And everything. That one was 16 hours.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot of time.
Before you move on, Fiona, when we're talking tattoos, I'm gonna. Is it okay if I say mine? I don't know.
Of course, go for it.
So there is a purpose behind all of them. So
as are the same with all of mine as well. There's a story
you
behind
can't
all of
sort of
mine.
see
So I'm
it,
very
but
much
maybe
the
you
same
can. If
mindset.
I turn it there, that's the Brood. So that's a tribute to Edge, Christian, and Gangrel. They were my first team that I really liked. So a lot of them are there's some wrestling and some soccer, Jax. Soccer, not football. Soccer in the UK. Some soccer related. I'm not going to show you them all because they don't want to show you my physique. You don't want to be looking at that this time of night or this time of day. On my back, I got one on my right shoulder here, which is the rated R from Edge, the rated R star with the women going over it, because Edge was one of my all-time favorite wrestlers. It's probably a bit sad that I've got tattoos about wrestlers, but these are the people that I've grown up watching, so I wanted to resonate because they did have an importance in my life.
Say it's sad. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you pay your bills?
Of course.
Do you worry? Then who cares?
Exactly.
Right? Is it important?
Yeah, definitely. They're all important to me.
Right?
Yeah.
If you don't pay your bills and they don't affect your everyday life, their opinion does not matter.
No, exactly that.
If you love it, I'm all for it, man.
Yeah, on my right, on this shoulder here, I've got there's a Flames and there's Dice, and a Dice of 316 for Stone Cold Steve Austin. So that was because my story was I actually met him in England when he was driving around, because his first wife lived about 20 minutes from me, and I met him just walking down the road one day. Anyway, but its significance was obviously Steve Austin, which was, that's a big
deal.
Yeah, I've got a Latin phrase across my body here, which is Uda es facere, which is Latin for today is to do, and that is my soccer team in the UK. I'll mention it. They're called Tottenham Hotspur. Yeah, that's going to cause a bit of a thing over here. But on my right arm here is the badge, although it's changed since then. This is like a tribal pattern which I got with my best mate. He got one done, so it was just one of those things that we done together. And on my calf, I've got another tribal pattern which looks similar to my friend's one that he got done. So we've got quite a few there. I want to get one with my son because you mentioned sort of the family rhythm, like the niece and people like that. So my son, I want to get one for him, but I'm trying to figure out what to do because I'll give you a bit of a backlog. And sorry, this is your podcast, Jax, not mine. I don't know. Yeah, so my son was 2 months premature and he nearly died twice during the first week of his life. So I'm trying to get something to coincide. I haven't found. I suppose one of those things is a bit like a house, a bit like a girl in their wedding dress, Fiona. When you know it, it's there, right?
So my niece, my Mochi, that you brought up premature, she was born in October and she was supposed to be born in February.
Wow. That's late.
Yeah. Wow. And now once I get off here, I'm running to go swimming with her as we speak. But she's 3 now and doing really, really well, man. No deficiencies. She really came back from that. So I hope your son as well is doing just as good.
You wouldn't know it. He's 8 years old now, and they tell you all the bad stuff that could possibly happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course they have to. He passed all the tests. I mean, they done one with his ears, and it was just like they put like a noise cancelling headset on, and they have to see if they can thing to noise, and it was quick as that. I mean, it wasn't surprising. You open a crisp packet, and his eyes look towards you, so you could kind of, get away. But no, he's 8 now. He's top of his class at everything, and you just wouldn't know what he's doing. Sorry, Fiona, to drag on.
No, quite all right. So I'll not bother going into mine because then we'll be here all night as well. So we can bypass mine. Yeah. I have several, but they've all got meaning behind them, and that's what you need to know.
Yeah. Have you got any other questions before we move on, Fiona?
Oh yeah, but I think probably they'll be more fitted in for later on with the NWA stuff, because I've got stuff about that. So we can move on. That's
brilliant. Fine. Okay, Dax, tell us, if anyone at home, if they haven't seen you before, how did it all begin for you?
Oh man, wow, it's a while ago. So like I said, I played basketball in college, right? Mm-hmm. Guard, 3 guard, sometimes played point guard in college, and got my degree, started working corporate job, right, like everybody does, and thought that was the American dream, right? That's what they teach you. Just having some really bad days there, early 2000s. And my roommate in college, one of my roommates, his dad at the time was one of the lead cameramen for the WWE. And he had mentioned to me in passing at games, right, when he would come to support the games, he had mentioned to me a couple of times, he said, man, you're built for it, your tenacity, you're durable. If you ever want to try professional wrestling, give me a buzz and I'll put you in touch with the right people. That people tell you all the time they can do things for you, right, or they're willing to help and what have you. So I took it with a grain of salt. Great relationship with his son, no reason not to believe him. Few bad days in the corporate world, man. I called my teammate. I said, hey, let me get your dad on the phone if we can. Had a conversation with him. He helped me craft a letter to send to Dr. Tom Pritchard. And sent that letter and email to Dr. Tom. Within 48 hours of sending that, I got a phone call. Within 48 hours of that, I was in Louisville, Kentucky, working out for OVW. Wow. First that really I was in the ring with for my workout was Doug Basham.
Yeah.
The other Basham Damager, Jackie Gate. I don't know if you remember Jackie.
Yeah.
Miles. And I'd never been in a wrestling ring. So Rip Rogers, Danny Davis, and Dr. Tom. So it really worked out pretty well for me. That it was honestly a good and a bad. And what I mean by that is I started professional wrestling at Ohio Valley Wrestling when it was the developmental territory for the WWE. Yeah. So I took it, looking back at this now, this is not my perspective of it when I was there. So I took a huge leap over thousands of guys to even be able to get that opportunity, to be able to perform in that opportunity and see what would happen. And I was grateful for that. And I worked very hard while I was there. So at the time I thought, wow, man, this is great. I didn't have to go through the independent wrestling scene. But the independent wrestling scene offers you so much education, and not necessarily in the ring, but in the ring's important as well, but navigating locker rooms, what to do, what not to do, what to say, what not to say. You learn that in independent wrestling. I learned that in Ohio Valley Wrestling too, because when I got there, I was fortunate enough to attach myself to Nick Dinsmore and Rob Conway. Yeah. Rob ended up tag team partner in New Japan.
Sure.
And those guys did a really good job of trying to keep me smart to the ethics of the business, I guess you would say. But in all reality, looking back on it now, I didn't realize what an opportunity it was, because I didn't realize the struggle it takes to even get to that point.
Yeah.
That a lot of guys go through to get to that point. I don't want to say I took it for granted, because I played college basketball as an athlete. I worked out, I worked hard. So I'd paid some dues, I guess you could say, just not in the right industry. So I still feel like I deserve to be there. But I guess what I'm getting at is, if I could go back to that opportunity now with what I know now, I would approach that whole situation much differently than I did then.
Yeah. Sure. Interesting. Really interesting. How was OVW at that point? Because as you say,
it was Rockstar. I mean, It was, if you were there and you were in the contract class and you were one of the top 10 or 12 guys, you were going. You were going straight to Raw, you were going straight to SmackDown, and you were going to be good at what you do. Rip Rogers is probably, at that time, he was the best professional trainer in the world, professional wrestling trainer in the world. I mean, he had trained Orton and Dinsmore and Conway. I mean, you go down the list of seeing all those guys, right? They came out in that era. Yeah. Shelton Benjamin, Charlie Haas. I mean, you just you can name them all, Matt Morgan, and there's just guys that were really, really talented and really, really good. And I know I'm leaving guys out. I mean, Lashley was there, Carlito was there. So it allowed me to build a bunch of relationships that have helped me later in my career. But man, it was top of the food chain. The facility had just opened on Shepherdsville Road, the new arena. Danny Davis was running it. Cornette was there, who is a genius as well in his own right and his own perspective of the business. I mean, I know a lot of people don't agree with him, but he's had success and he's really good at what he does. So it was just, if you wanted to make it as a professional wrestler, that's where you wanted to be. And I was so ignorant, and I don't say that word as a derogatory term. I was so ignorant by meaning not knowing what a gift that was position I was sitting in, that I really didn't maximize and take advantage of it like I probably should have, looking back on. But it was fantastic. The practices were great. The psychology was great. The shows or the events that we would have to go to and do, they were solid. I mean, it was just a developmental. It was a AAA for WWE.
It was. Just touching earlier on, you said sort of Rock or Cena you put as the greatest. You would put as the greatest of all time. Do you think it's because we were arguing this the other day on the show? Not arguing. We was having a discussion about this on our show the other day, and we're saying, is there a difference between greatest of all time and greatest wrestler of all time?
Absolutely. 100%. To me, the greatest professional wrestler in the ring, take everything out of it, what they accomplished in the ring, Bobby Eaton. 100%.
Really?
Okay. Yeah.
Really?
For me, I think Bobby Eaton is the greatest. Definitely, in my opinion, and take that with a grain of salt, right? The greatest tag team professional wrestler of all time. Yeah. Bobby Eaton. I mean, if you go back and you really study Bobby's abilities, he was outstanding. I mean, no wasted movement, never unsaid. I mean, just all the things that you absolutely want. To me, Bobby Eaton is the greatest professional wrestler of all time.
Brilliant. I suppose it's different. Sorry, I was trying to say, I think there's obviously different ways of, obviously there's the professional wrestling side of it, but I suppose for the greatest of all time, you've got to check merchandise, promo, what you've done to the business as a whole, not just what you do outside and inside the ring, right?
Yeah, well, the greatest wrestler versus the most over.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, and Cena still gets a pot. Let's face it, Cena and Rock still, the arena still explodes. They still put bums on seats, even if they're not there. If they get announced, bang, seats are sold.
For me, guys that fall into that category of over, that Road Warrior pop, right?
Yeah.
The Road Warrior, Ultimate Warrior got that. Hogan got that. You can go down the list. Triple H as a heel was that guy. Stone Cold was absolutely obviously that guy. So, I mean, it's hard to say greatest of all time. When I say greatest for me, it's for what I like. That doesn't necessarily mean.
Yeah. No, exactly that. We all have different tastes and what we like as a wrestler, for argument. So one of mine I put near the top. Oh, geez, I can't even remember. I think I put Hogan at the top. I think I'm going to have to watch it back now because I've totally. But I think it's because he obviously, without, in my opinion, because obviously I was born 84, so I didn't get into wrestling until 90s when it become over here. We had obviously the Big Daddy Giant Haystacks kind of thing, but the first bit of wrestling that we saw was WWF on like Sky TV, but it was not until 90s, and we didn't have like the territories or anything like that, so to be able to watch like Rock and Roll or Midnight back then. And the reason why I said it is, for me personally, if there wasn't Hulkamania when I was growing up, there wasn't a WWE.
Yeah,
I agree with that. I agree with that. And then there's still guys, right? I mean, if you think about career accomplishments, you've got a guy like AJ Styles.
Oh yeah, brilliant.
Who accomplishment wise, he's in the argument with everyone.
Of course.
He was champ at the NWA. He was the champ at ROH. He was the champ at New Japan. He was the champ at Impact. He's been the champ at WWE. Yeah. Every company he's ever worked for has trusted him to be the face of their company. So he's got to be in the conversation. Brock is the only guy that's ever been able to do what he wants as far as jumping back and forth between industries and kind of calling his shot. He's in that conversation. To me, and I may be biased on this, I think Lashley's in that conversation. I mean, he carried Impact for a long time. He's top at WWE. he had great success in Japan. He had great success in MMA. You know, and then it's fun for me because you look at a guy like Shelton Benjamin. I mean, the longevity, right? And when Shelton was in New Japan, he wrestled completely different than the way he wrestled at WWE. When he was at New Japan, he was a killing machine, and he was great at that. Yeah. So a lot of it goes into how you're booked and what they ask of you. And take MVP, right? MVP, great career in Japan, great career at WWE, great second career at WWE. And then Kurt Angle. I mean, there's just so many guys so good at this that it's hard to say, man, it's easier to say your top 25 than it is to say who's your top 5, because they're only separated by criteria and just minimal. Minimal
taste, isn't it? Your personal taste, even if you're looking at that way. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, Jack, before we move on to the most important part of the show, which is the NWA and the Crocket Cup. And I know, Fiona, you're going to like that segment of the show. The questions are just random questions, just about wrestling. In terms of, we're talking about people and personas. In your opinion, there's 2 questions that I asked, and it generally stumps a few wrestlers where they tend to take a bit of time answering. Fiona's smiling because you know exactly where I'm going with this, because she's been on the show enough. So
what shows is what this tells me.
Yeah. So 1 is, what is the greatest wrestling theme song? And 2, what is the greatest wrestling entrance? As in the full presentation.
The greatest entrance
from presentation purposes, not necessarily the music. The music's a separate question.
The great entrance is Orton for me. Yeah. Wow. I mean, I didn't even talk about him in the greatest, but man, he's second to me. He's second behind Bobby Eaton as the greatest professional wrestler ever. He could beat Randy Orton on that. So to me, Orton's entrance is just, but it ties all together. It's the music. It's his pace. It's how he gets in the ring. It's how he looks on the turnbuckle. It's the whole package, right? Of how. And then the greatest entrance music of all time is Road Warriors. I mean, it's not even, that's in question.
I remember my first WWF event was SummerSlam '92. I had hair back then, and I also had a wig on because it was British Bulldog was in the main event, and I had. And don't laugh, it's not funny. The best part of that, and I vividly remember the Legion of Doom, as the Road Warriors, come down with Paul Ellering on like Harleys. I think it was Harleys, and they were, oh man, it was just absolutely crazy in that building. But I go with presentation. I didn't. Do you know what? I've never thought about Randy Orton as the entrance. I think he's great. Don't get me wrong, and hopefully, his back heals or whatever the issue that he's got comes back if he can come back. But I always go for the Undertaker for entrance.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of his entrance too. The reason, if anything, is Orton's entrance has never really changed. Kind of like Triple H entrance has never changed.
Yeah.
These guys, I guess some really sound advice, and I haven't really followed it, to be honest, but if they can't imitate your entrance, you're not doing it right.
Yeah. I used to do the Randy Orton pose, so
right,
yeah.
and you'll probably like this. For me, the second greatest entrance of all time was Edge.
I love Edge.
Slide in. It's good. For what I like Orton's entrance, man.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Let's move on, Fiona.
Yes.
Kick us off. NWA. It's your baby. It's your passion. You love it. Kick us off with it.
Well, no, I just obviously, Jax, that you've been around the NWA for a lengthy period of time now. The kind of pre-Lightning One era, you were there when the Tharp era, basically. You've held the national championship, you've held the USA Tag Team Championships, you've had the North American Championship, and you've also had the 10 pounds of gold, the heavyweight championship, the World's Heavyweight Championship. For me, the World Heavyweight Championship is like probably one of the most, in fact, for me, the most prestigious belt in the world. The lineage on that is absolutely phenomenal.
Agreed.
What did winning that belt mean to you at the time?
Well, like everyone, right? You want to be the top of the food chain. So when you get when you earn the right to be the top of the food chain, it's a pretty special feeling. But then when you realize that the top of that food chain has been who it's been, then it becomes really special to you, right? And I think I was quoted in PWI as saying, and this is just not verbatim, but I just looked at it, it was my job to carry that title with a type of prestige that would make the guys that went before me proud. And don't do anything to mess it up, man. Just keep it, you know, when you first start learning to drive, just keep it between the lines. And that's that's how I took that approach, man, is that, you know, you think of the guys that held that title, from Kojima and Tenzan, two of the greatest Japanese wrestlers of all time, Muda, Conway, Harley Race, the Briscoes, AJ Styles, Adam Pearce, right, who is one of the very best professional wrestlers that's ever tied his boots. Adam Pearce is phenomenal.
And that's official, as he says nowadays.
That's official. So you realize all the guys that had that, right, and carried that and held that responsibility. It makes it really special to you. And for me, I don't mind saying this. It's going to be, that may be a little forceful. It would be an honor if I had that privilege with the Corrigan regime as well.
Was there a bit more lineage of the NWA, as you mentioned? Brilliant names, amazing. Did you feel as if there was more pressure when you got that bill? Did you feel any pressure because of the lineage of that title?
Not necessarily pressure. Not from the outside world. Internally, I'll be honest with you on how I approach professional wrestling, because I think this is how you have to approach professional wrestling. I have about four guys. I give a shit about their opinion. Outside of that, I don't care. So pressure, that's not pressure, because I don't care what people think. And I know everybody says that, and that's why you never see me respond to negative comments online. You never see me engage in debates on. I don't give a shit what you say. If you're not one of those four people or my family, I don't care. Pressure is the guy that's got 4 kids and he's working 2 jobs and he doesn't have health insurance and he's trying to figure out how to pay the light bill. Man, that's pressure. Putting on spandex and lacing up some boots and wrestling in front of 10, 15, 20,000 people over in Japan, that's not pressure. That's fun. Now, it would be a lot more fun now than it was then, because when I was wrestling in New Japan, I'd had less than 30 matches. So I was really, really green over there. Yeah. But there was no pressure being the world champ, because it's such a, even though at that point you're kind of the most important spoke in the wheel, you're still a spoke in the wheel, right? You got to have an opponent, you got to have a referee, you got to have announcers, you got to have, so it doesn't all fall on you. You just got to carry your load. And that's fun. That's not pressure. Pressure's paying bills, man. Pressure's taking care of your kids. Pressure's taking care of your parents as they get older. That's pressure. Wrestling isn't pressure.
Excellent. Let's move Crocket Cup. Fiona's got me into it. So what I like about the NWA quickly is I've known Fiona for a good few years now. We inside the ropes where Fiona works and does the tours with. We started speaking on there and some of the tours that you've put on, and we're going to get into that just before we end, Fiona, because we know you got a tour to announce that went on sale today. And she used to post on Twitter that it was NWA, and I was like, well, I remember the NWA, but I didn't know he was back. And I think the greatest thing now is that it's on, we criticize social media, and rightfully so, because it does have its negative points. And like you say, it's a double-edged sword, because with the NWA going on YouTube, for me, it's genius, because I could be like a little bit, I actually got to catch up on it later on today. After we finish this, I'm going to literally have my dinner and I'm going to have Power on YouTube. It doesn't matter what time of day. You guys went to Australia recently and with Billy to do the Smashing Pumpkins, and he took NWA with him. Again, genius, because of the eyes on the prize. And they don't have to wait, because when we watch, wrestling over here in the UK, if we watch it live, it's at 1 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the morning. Well, not necessarily now in the networks. We could get up at 6 or 7 and watch it. But the bottom line is, if it was live and we wanted to watch it live, 1 a.m. I've just said tonight it's going to be about 8 o'clock or so when we finish this. I'm going to have Power on. Genius idea, in my opinion. Do you agree with that, Jax?
Oh, absolutely. And because here's what's happening in and this isn't just wrestling. This is entertainment. Outside of playoff games for the NBA or playoff games for football or Monday Night Football or Monday Night Raw. I mean, there's things that are almost written in stone, right?
Yep.
But outside of that, how long has it been since you caught a sitcom because it comes on Thursday night at 8 o'clock?
No.
That doesn't happen. No. Everything is streaming, and everything, well, not everything, but a big portion of what we watch, my wife and I included, we binge watch. We'll turn on something on Netflix, we'll watch 6 or 7 minute episodes on a Sunday. Right? Nobody has time to do anything but that.
Yep.
So it's being able to get the media to fit your schedule is the biggest upside of that versus having to catch it at a certain time in a certain place. So I just see that's where it's going with that. I mean, you've got Netflix, Hulu. I mean, you go down the list, Paramount. I mean, it's just streaming, right?
Yeah.
And you pick when and what you want to watch. It's not the TV schedule that we grew up on.
No, it's your own schedule now, isn't it? That's basically it. I've got a quick question for you, Jax. Actually, just before we mention the Crocket Cup, I do apologize because you mentioned you were basketball. If you had a choice, you can play for your basketball team that you wanted to perform in the NBA finals and you can win it, or you main event WrestleMania and there's no guarantee you're going to win it. What are you doing?
Even if I was guaranteed I was going to win WrestleMania, I'm still picking an NBA championship.
Really?
Because everybody that does this, or everybody that does this should be prize fighters. Even in sports, even in basketball, even in football. The reason that you do this is for the prize, right? What's the prize? The prize is money. Look at the difference what an NBA guy is making versus what your WrestleMania champ is making. And that's no disrespect to WWE or even the UFC guys fighting. But these basketball players are getting $100 million contracts, $200 million contracts. I win an NBA title because I bet that's pretty valuable.
Indeed. Yeah, indeed. So let's go. So we segue. Sorry, my apologies. Crocket Cup. So Fiona, I'm going to say it again. You got me into NWO, so I've been watching it recently. Crocket Cup, massive prestige. You qualified for it, so congratulations for that. First off, you're taking on a team in the first round of the brackets that the father of the team was probably part of one of the greatest tag teams of all time.
100%. I agree with you. I mean, they're definitely one of the top 4 tag teams in the history of wrestling.
Yeah. So I suppose really is how are you? He's going to have a lot. They're not necessarily be massively experienced in the ring like yourself, but they've got the father. They've got the father that is. What's your mindset going into this? Going against a team that's the father of one of the greatest tag teams in the world.
Well, the mindset never changes for me. It's always straightforward. Doesn't matter who it is. Wouldn't matter if it was Tyrus. Wouldn't matter if it was Lashley. I mean, I've wrestled them all, and it's straightforward. That's all I know. That's all I can do. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. But their father's not getting in the ring with them. They got to get in the ring.
That's right.
So, at the end of the day, he can't fight their fights. And I don't know them very well, but I can imagine they wouldn't want him to fight their fights.
No.
They're competitors, man, and they're pretty good at what they do. It's exciting to me to be able to wrestle these guys and to see how we will fare against them, because as much as I like to say Troop is a dominant individual and Jax Dane is a dominant individual, but we're not necessarily a dominant pair just yet. No. We've only had a couple matches together, and we've, there's not dissension, but there's been bumps in the road. We've got leadership in Silvio that is very good for us. So we're not a well-oiled machine yet, but we're good enough to win this thing. Think about that, just on size and strength and power. And you also got to keep in mind, man, who's been in our locker room for the past 2 years? Who's been in our locker room? That's associated with those guys.
Oh, to be honest, do you know this? Because I'm stumped now.
It would probably be Bully Ray, wouldn't it?
Oh my God!
Yeah, I didn't even put 2 and 2 together there. Actually,
My mind went back. You think Bully Ray may be feeding those guys? But they're up against.
Possibility.
I mean, great relationship with Bully, but I would almost be pissed at him if he wasn't telling Devon, who's his longtime tag team partner, what those kids are up against.
Yeah,
he owes them to do that, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So it's almost like I don't want to. I'm going to use this term because it's the term that they use, but I don't mean this towards Bully Ray. There's a mole in the count, right? There's a German in the count, and they can tell us what we are and what we do. And I don't mean that disrespectful towards Bully in any stretch or fashion. That's just what they call it, right? So, and I would almost be, I would be mad at him if he wasn't telling them what was going on.
You kind of touched on there. Obviously, you're going into the Crocket Cup with Troop as your tag team partner, and you've kind of touched on that you're still fairly new and you're learning to gel with each other and things like that. Obviously, you guys get seeded 13th, which for me personally, I think is quite a low seed. And the fact that
because Corgan hates us. Corgan hates us. We don't play his bullshit games. We don't tweet out his song lyrics. We don't beg for fans to buy our t-shirts. We don't, I mean, you know, we don't pretend to be cowboys. And I mean, we don't play the game. So Corgan hates us. Of course, I'm surprised we're ranked as high as 13th. I mean, that's high for me. I mean, really, I mean, that's no surprise that we're ranked 13th.
Wow. Do you? What does winning this cup mean to you, Jax? The Crocket Cup.
Well, at this stage of my career, it means a lot, man. 10 years ago, I'd have been like, nah, you know, there was only a handful of these happened before, but now I'm to the point where, and Fee touched on this a little earlier, North American, National, NWA Texas, NWA Southwest, World Tag. The only really things I'm missing at this point are the TV title and the Crocket Cup.
Okay.
Both of those are on the radar.
Yeah.
And if it's just something I'd like to add to it, right? I mean, and anytime, it doesn't matter if it's dominoes or spades or 3-on-3 basketball. If I'm in a tournament, I want to win.
Yeah.
It's just how I'm wired.
You don't.
Yeah, so I'm not there to hug babies and shake hands with kids. I'm there to win these days. So it would mean a lot, man. And then you look, I mean, the teams that have won it, the Briscoes, that's pretty special, you know, and then the teams in the past that have won it, that's pretty awesome too.
Yeah, definitely. It would be. I personally can't wait. What are we, about a week or so away from it now? The
next weekend.
The Crocket Cup. It's going to be outstanding. I'm going to ask you one last question, Jax, before we start wrapping up. And Fiona, if you've got one last question, you can ask after as well before we start wrapping up today. You've kind of touched on you've won it. You know, you've nearly enough won everything in NWA that you want to win. Is there anything else left in the story that you want to win that you haven't done, or is there anywhere else that potentially you could go that you'd want to go to maybe finish off a career that you've got, or is it just now NWA for life, so to speak?
Well, you notice over the past couple of years I haven't taken any bookings outside of NWA. That's not because there hasn't been opportunities. I'm going to pull the curtain back a little bit here, okay, because I've never really done this. And I get the question all the time, why didn't you go here, or why didn't you do that? Or so I never left that corporate job. I progressed in that corporate job. Now at a major corporation, I'm an executive level in charge of a couple $100 million in sales every year. I work 60 hours a week doing that, and I still wrestle. I still work out, still take care of my family. And the NWA has been a godsend for me in my professional wrestling career because of the scheduling, the way we do things. You know, when I was wrestling in Japan, I'd fly to Japan, and then I would work all night while I was over there with my computers and my cell phones, right? Because it's 12-hour difference, 13-hour difference.
Sure.
And then I'd sleep for 2-3 hours, and then I'd get up and get on the bus, and then I'd go wrestle. And then I'd go right back to the hotel, and I'd open my computer, and I'd open my cell phones, and I would maintain my corporate job as well. So and I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but as fortunate I've been to be accomplished in professional wrestling, I'm 10 times that more accomplished in the world of business and my corporate career. So no, there is nothing for me outside of the NWA. It's just doesn't make sense on a long term deal. Now, would I take bookings and do some matches? Yes, absolutely, 100%. But it's not a goal to end up here or to go there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I just want to say something personally, because I appreciate you pulling the curtain back, and you didn't have to do that. So thank you for that. And I don't mean this to come off any disrespect to anyone that we've had on, or even just wrestling in general, but that last little bit that you mentioned there about your job and you're still doing wrestling, for me, has opened up a real different line of respect for you personally, not just, you know, I don't mean that horribly to any other wrestler. Look, you guys put your lives on the line. The moment you step in that ring, it could be over in a heartbeat. And I appreciate everyone that does that. But I think it hit home for me because obviously you're talking family, you work 60 hours and you go and wrestle to get the bills done so you can look after your family. And that, for me, all I can just say is that has just opened up a massive level of respect for me that I wasn't expecting on this. So just thank you for that, Jax. I appreciate what you said.
I appreciate the compliment, but we do what we have to do to take care of the people we love.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
That. Fiona, before we finish up, go for it.
Yeah, I'm just on the back of that, and I'm not going to mention any names, but I know the NWA locker room, there's quite a few of you in that same boat. You were saying that they've got their shoot job, so to speak, their day job that they do, and the way the schedule is, it's every 8 weeks or roughly, give or take. There's a pay-per-view, a couple of days taping and stuff, and I know that suits quite a few of you. I think the balance must be really difficult for you at times. I know I work a regular job, but then I'm doing shows at the weekend, so I'm working 7-day weeks sometimes, and then I'm having to take vacation time from my day job to go and do my wrestling job when it's tours and things like that. So the balance is difficult, and I think the NWA obviously giving you kind of what you need. You're getting the best of both worlds almost.
And that's the value in the NWA to me, is it allows me to do that on top of the locker room's first class.
Yeah. Everyone that we've spoken to said the same thing.
As much as I don't feel like the ownership appreciates me sometimes, I have a lot of respect for the guys that are running our company. And then when you look at the agents that we have, how fortunate we are to have Jazz and Homicide. You can go down the list of the agents that we have. Bully Ray does some of that, so on and so forth. I mean, we've got some really accomplished people that it's just a great company to be a part of. And something else that Billy does on a regular basis is gives opportunities to people.
Yeah.
Sometimes these guys aren't even ready for that opportunity, but they make themselves ready. They get there, they get it done, and then it's fun to see them grow into what they've become. I mean, there's a handful of guys on our roster like that now that were put into a position prior to being ready to do that, but man, they've blossomed. And so maybe they were ready, we just didn't know they were ready, right? And I can relate to that so well because I'm standing in front of 12,000 people in Japan, and I'm looking at Kojima across the ring, and I haven't had 30 matches.
Yeah.
So sometimes you get put into deep water, and you either sink or swim, and I think there's some value in that.
Definitely is. Fiona, let's start wrapping this up, and we're going to come back to you, Jax, in a minute to promote your stuff. Fiona, Inside the Ropes today. Wow. Tickets went on sale today for your big show. You've got some shows coming up from your Scottish wrestling stuff. Yeah, let's hit Inside the Ropes first.
Whole host of things. So yeah, the tickets went on sale today for our tour with Eric Bischoff across 5 locations across the UK. We're hitting Cork, Dublin, Belfast, London and Glasgow, starting on the 24th of September.
Yeah.
So that's the usual kind of Inside the Ropes style of show. We'll do the meet and greet, you get to meet Eric, photographs, autographs, and then we'll sit down and Kenny McIntosh will sit on stage and have a general kind of chit chat, different theme every night.
Yeah.
If you've not been an Inside the Ropes shows, they're absolutely worth it. They are so much fun. I love them. I am so excited. My love for Eric is not it's not private. Everyone knows I love Eric, so I'm really looking forward to that. So that's coming up. We've also got a show with Gangrel, a one-off show with Gangrel in Glasgow.
Great dude.
I'm really excited. I'm really excited to meet him. That's on the, I think it's the 18th of July or the 16th. I better check my camera, my calendar really quickly.
I don't mean to cut in, but I want to tell you, Gangrel is better than advertised in person, man. He's great.
I'm so excited to meet him.
Being around him.
Yeah.
It's on the 16th of July. 16th. It's a one-off show in Glasgow. We are starting to kind of do, rather than the larger tours, we're going to try this year and do some smaller intimate venues with smaller crowds, so that the interaction's a bit more personal for the fans. So one off with Gangrel. So the tickets are still available for that. That's at the Classic Grand in Glasgow. And what else? I have a weekend off this weekend, and I have next weekend off. I'm like, whoa, what to do with all my time? On the 9th of June, British Championship Wrestling returns to my hometown for the first time in 3 years. I am getting to MC the whole show. I am so excited. So the tickets available from that from ringsideworld.com. And then on the 10th of June, I'm back down in Lincoln at the Engine Shed for One Pro Wrestling. And then there's loads coming up over the summer, loads of fairs and shows and just so much happening. I'm dead excited.
More chauffeuring in 1PW, is it?
More chauffeuring, more just doing what I do best, basically.
Well, obviously, I live in England, you live in Scotland. We are arranging meets up for All In and other areas. But
that's right. I've got All In. I've got Money in the Bank as well. So lots going on.
There. But I am coming to Eric Bischoff in London, and I will just add. And you mentioned the quieter settings, the more intimate settings. I also want to make a note of the pricing to people, because obviously we're still going through this economic stuff that we're going into, and as Jackson mentioned before, we've got people to support and stuff like that. I must say that the price for the VIP tickets for Eric Bischoff, and this is in British pounds, Jax, you're gonna have to do the maths maybe, at £65 for a VIP ticket to see Eric Bischoff is bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. And I encourage anyone that hasn't gone and seen these shows or Inside the Ropes before, A, you should have done, and B, they are absolutely amazing. I've enjoyed every single one I've been to, and I've been to about 4 or 5. The maestro that is Kenny McIntosh on that stage,
he's brilliant.
The stories that you get out of that one intimate evening, you will live long in your memory for sure. So get them booking. Before we go to Jazz to wrap it up, I've got an independent show myself. So the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast is massively sponsoring British wrestling over here in the UK. The 23rd of July, we are partnering with Ignite Wrestling Pro to put on the show Buckle Up. We've announced there was 3 matches out of the 6 that have already been announced, some debuts in there as well. I can't go into the other details of what we're going to be announcing. I don't know if they're going to be announced pre or on the show, hence why I've got to be very careful what I say on here. But the tickets are on sale already. Front row's gone. Second row is pretty much gone. Just come and have a look. Go on search Ignite Wrestle Pro on Twitter. They will have a link to the tickets. Or you can buy the Inside the Ropes magazine. No pun intended, Fiona. No extra bit of thingy for you. And if you go to page 1, you can't really see it properly on here, but there is a buckle up and there is a QR code. Scan that and you'll get your tickets. Anyway, I'm not going to announce the guest that we've got coming on next week because we've vastly run out of time. Let's finish off with Jax. Jax, NWA Power, 6:05 Eastern on a Tuesday on YouTube. Where can the fans get in touch with you? What else have you got going on? Just rattle it off for us.
Oh, man. My Instagram is Jax Dane. Same with Twitter and Facebook. Crocket Cup, man, that card is stacked. You've got Camille versus Markova. You've got EC3 versus Silas. Silas is a monster, man. EC3 is a genius. I mean, and then you look at the teams, it looks like we've added the Outrunners and TNT. You got the the Spectaculars, and you got Bobby Fulton's going to be there. I mean, if you just go down to everything that's going on with the Crocket Cup, man, what a card. 2-night event, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, June 3rd, June 4th. Available on Fight TV on pay-per-view. Tickets still available. I'm pretty sure front rows sold out both nights.
Yeah, they have.
But, man, what a hell of an event that's going to be. Looking forward to it.
In fact, Fiona, I was going to say, me and you need to watch it and we need to do a review show.
We can do that. That's fine. I've already bought it on Fight. I'm so sad I'm not there this year. I was there last year, but alas, the flights were too expensive for me. And I was in Tampa.
I'll get a cowboy hat for the review show. What do you reckon? Yeah.
Go for it.
Brilliant. Guys, let's wrap this up. Jax, fantastic. What a fantastic guest that we've had this evening. We love everyone that comes on this show. We try to be different to a normal podcast. That's what we do. We don't like doing some of the stuff that gets headlines or anything like that. We just want people to come in and have a great time. And I've certainly had a great time talking to you, Jax. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Jax. Much appreciated.
No sweat. Anytime you guys need anything, let me know. Either of you. Be glad to do whatever I can to help both of you and your companies.
Thank you very much, Jax. Fiona, I will see you again very soon. We'll sort out the review, guys. Guys, this has been the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. I've been your host, Adam Cousins, along with Fiona Lochrin and the great Jax Dane. Until next time, everybody, stay safe.